Have you ever wondered what happens to a man the longer he goes without a real relationship? How it changes him, how it shapes the way he sees love, commitment, and the kind of woman he chooses. You may think time makes him wiser, more ready, more appreciative of love. But the truth, time can do one of two things. It can either turn him into a man who values what is rare, or it can create a man who has forgotten what real love even feels like. A man who has been without a real connection for too long is like a house that has been left abandoned. At first, it still stands strong. The foundation is there. The walls still hold. But as the days pass, cracks begin to form. The paint starts to chip. The once welcoming space becomes cold, empty, and lifeless. And before anyone notices, what once could have been a home is now just a structure with no warmth, no light, no love. Seneca once said, "The mind that is not fed with love will feed itself with illusions." And that is exactly what happens. A man who has been alone for too long does not stay the same. He either learns the value of love, or he forgets how to receive it. He builds walls so high that even when a woman worthy of his heart stands before him, he cannot see her. He convinces himself he does not need anyone, that love is a game, that emotions are weakness, that he is better off keeping his heart locked away. And the longer he believes this, the harder it becomes for him to feel something real. Now, here you are, a woman of depth, of love, of power, a woman who knows how to nurture, how to give, how to bring warmth into a man's world. But tell me, what happens when a fire meets a man who has forgotten how to feel its warmth? It does not matter how bright you burn if he has spent too long in the cold. He will not appreciate it. He will not cherish it. Because to him, warmth is not home. It is a threat to the world he has built inside his mind. And this is where so many women make the mistake. You think that if you just love harder, if you just show him your worth, if you just prove that you are different, he will wake up. But love cannot reach a man who has spent too long running from it. You do not melt a frozen heart by standing in the cold with him. You do not break his walls by banging on them, begging to be let in. You rise above them. You become something he cannot ignore, something he cannot forget. Because this is where everything changes. This is where you stop chasing and start becoming. This is where you shift from waiting for love to commanding it. This is where you become what you were always meant to be, a woman who does not prove her worth, but one who lives in it. And when you step into that power, when you stop begging and start reigning, that is when the right man, the man who is not afraid of love, will step forward. Because a queen does not wait to be chosen. She knows she was never meant to be an option. She was meant to be the prize. Queens, if this message spoke to your heart, if it reminded you of the power that has always been inside you, then let your presence be known. Like this video and subscribe to the channel, because we are here working hard to bring you the truth, the lessons, and the strength you need to rise. This is more than just a message, it's a movement, a reminder that you were never meant to beg for love. You were meant to reign. Number 1. The longer he has been alone, the more he forgets how to love. The longer a man has been alone, the more he forgets how to love. Not because he chooses to, but because love is like a language. If he stops speaking it, he loses the ability to understand it. Have you ever seen a man who used to love deeply, but now seems cold, distant, and unbothered? A man who once knew how to care, but now acts as if emotions are nothing more than a distraction. That's not strength. That's not growth. That is what happens when love is neglected for too long. It fades, and so does the ability to give and receive it. Time does not always make a man wiser in love. Sometimes it makes him harder, more guarded, more disconnected. The longer he walks alone, the more he convinces himself that love is not something he needs. He becomes comfortable in his solitude, thinking he is in control. But what he doesn't realize, he is not controlling love. Love is controlling him by its absence. He no longer remembers what it feels like to hold a woman who truly cares. He no longer understands the warmth of a loving presence, the comfort of shared laughter, the unspoken bond between two hearts that have chosen each other. Rumi once said, "Your task is not to seek love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it." And that is exactly what a man does when he spends too long without love. He builds barriers. He creates reasons to avoid emotions. He convinces himself that being alone is a choice, that love is a weakness, and that caring too much only leads to pain. But the truth? The more he avoids love, the more love avoids him. A man without a relationship for too long is like a garden without rain. At first, the flowers still stand tall. The roots are still strong. But as the days pass, the soil dries up, the petals begin to wilt, and the beauty that once thrived begins to fade. Love, like water, is not just something that is nice to have, it is something that is needed to survive. And when he goes too long without it, he starts to wither in ways he doesn't even notice. He stops making an effort. He stops believing in romance. He stops recognizing what a good woman looks like when she stands in front of him. And this is where the danger lies. A woman can give her heart to a man who no longer remembers how to hold it. She can try to love him, to show him what he is missing, to prove to him that love is still worth it. But a starving man does not know how to appreciate a feast, and a man who has forgotten love will only push it away, mistaking it for something temporary, something replaceable, and something that can wait. But love does not wait forever. This is where you rise. This is where you stop trying to teach a man how to love and instead become a woman who does not waste her time on the unwilling. Because love is not a lesson a man learns when he feels like it. Love is something he must be ready to receive. And if he has been without it for too long, if he has let himself forget its language, then let him stay in the silence he chose. Because you, dear woman, are not here to break. You're back trying to remind a man what love feels like. You are here to be cherished by the one who never forgot. A queen does not beg a man to open his heart. A queen does not wait for him to remember what he should have never forgotten. A queen moves forward, knowing that the right man will not need to be convinced, because he will have never let himself forget what love truly means. Queens, write this affirmation in the comments. I do not remind a man how to love. I walk away from the one who forgot. Let the world know that you are done waiting, done proving, done wasting your love on the unwilling. And if this message spoke to you, if it reminded you of the power you hold, then like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are here, working hard to bring you the truth, the wisdom, and the strength you need to rise. Because this is not just about love. This is about becoming the woman who never settles for less than she deserves. And queens, your time is now. Number 2. The longer he stays unattached, the more he convinces himself he doesn't need love. The longer a man stays unattached, the more he convinces himself that he doesn't need love. At first, it starts as a choice, a decision to focus on himself, to enjoy his freedom, to build his life without the complications of emotions and commitment. But as time passes, something dangerous happens. What began as independence turns into isolation. What started as self-sufficiency turns into emotional numbness. He stops craving love. He stops believing in it. And worst of all, he convinces himself that love is unnecessary. A man who stays away from love for too long becomes like a ship that refuses to sail. A ship is built for the ocean, meant to feel the waves, to move, to explore. But if it stays docked for too long, its ropes tighten, its sails stiffen, and soon it forgets how to move. The sea calls, but the ship no longer answers. And that is exactly what happens to him. The longer he remains unattached, the harder it is for him to open his heart again. Marcus Aurelius once said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." The problem is, when a man avoids love for too long, love itself becomes the thing he fears. He convinces himself that emotions are distractions, that vulnerability is weakness, that relationships are chains instead of connections. He starts treating love as a burden rather than a gift. And when the right woman finally stands before him, instead of stepping forward, he steps back. Not because she is wrong for him, but because he has spent too long running from what is right. And now, beautiful lady, here you are. A woman who knows how to give, how to nurture, how to love with depth and fire. A woman whose heart carries enough warmth to melt even the coldest soul. But tell me, what happens when fire meets a man who has convinced himself he no longer needs its warmth? He won't recognize it. He won't cherish it. He won't even know what to do with it. Because when a man has been alone for too long, he does not see love as salvation. He sees it as a threat to the walls he has built around his heart. This is where so many women go wrong. You think if you just love him harder, he will wake up. If you just prove your worth, he will change. If you just wait long enough, he will realize what he is missing. But listen carefully. Love cannot save a man who is determined to run from it. You do not chase a man who has forgotten what love feels like. You do not beg him to see your worth. You do not shrink yourself, waiting for him to be ready. Because a woman who knows her worth does not wait for a man to remember his heart. She walks away before he wastes her time. And this is the part where everything changes. This is the moment where you stop giving your energy to a man who has convinced himself he doesn't need love. Because the truth is, he will only realize what he lost when it is too late. One day, he will look around and see that his world is empty, that his victories feel hollow, that his nights are silent. He will remember the way you loved him, the way your presence brought light into his world, the way your voice was once the sound of home. And in that moment, he will feel the weight of his own choices. But by then, you will be long gone. Now you rise. Now you step into your power. Because you were never meant to convince a man to love you. You were never meant to wait for a man to wake up. You were meant to reign. The right man, the one who is not afraid of love, the one who is ready for the kind of woman you are, he will not need convincing. He will recognize you the moment he sees you. Because real love does not need proof, does not need begging, does not need waiting. It stands strong. It stands certain. It chooses you without hesitation. Queens, this is your time. No more waiting, no more proving, no more standing in the background, hoping he will change. You deserve a man who is not afraid to love you, a man who does not convince himself that he is better off alone, a man who knows what he has when he has you. Anything less? It is beneath you. Write this in the comments and claim it. I will not wait for a man to remember his heart. Let the world know that you are done waiting, done hoping, done proving. You are stepping into your power, and the right man will meet you there. Number 3. The longer he has been without a woman's love, the more he underestimates its power. A man who has gone too long without a woman's love does not stay the same. He may believe he is unaffected, that life is just fine without deep connection, without affection, without the energy of a woman who truly sees him. But the truth? The longer he goes without it, the more he underestimates just how powerful a woman's love really is. He begins to believe he does not need it, that he can function just fine on his own. And that belief? That is the beginning of his greatest mistake. A fire does not realize its warmth until it begins to fade. A flower does not understand the sun's power until it is left in the dark for too long. And a man who has been without a woman's love for too long starts to forget what it feels like to be truly cared for, truly supported, truly seen. He may convince himself that he is strong on his own, that he does not need the love of a woman to feel complete. But love is not about weakness, it's about transformation. It's about depth. It's about stepping into a life that is richer, fuller, more meaningful. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when a man spends too long without love, his thoughts begin to change. He sees relationships as burdens instead of blessings. He starts chasing temporary pleasure instead of real connection. He believes he is in control, that he is better off keeping his heart guarded. But what he does not realize is that he is not gaining control, he is losing something far greater. He is losing the ability to recognize real love when it stands before him. And then, one day, it happens. He meets a woman who carries the kind of love that could change his life. The kind of woman who does not just offer attention, but depth. The kind of woman whose presence feels like home. But instead of embracing it, he hesitates. He keeps his walls up. He lets her slip through his fingers, thinking he can always find love again, thinking there is no rush. And by the time he realizes what he has lost, she is already gone. Because a woman who knows her worth does not wait for a man to wake up. Queens, this is where everything shifts. This is where you stop proving your worth to a man who does not even understand the value of love. This is where you stop trying to fix a heart that has forgotten how to feel. Because a woman's love is not something to beg for, to convince, to chase. It is a gift, a rare, powerful gift that only a man who is ready for it will truly appreciate. And if he has spent too long alone, if he has convinced himself that he does not need love, then let him sit in that emptiness. Let him learn through the silence of your absence what he once took for granted. A queen does not force a man to see her worth. She does not plead for his recognition. She steps into her power and lets the right man rise to meet her. She does not chase, she reigns. And the man who is truly meant for her, he will not be afraid of her love. He will not underestimate its power. He will recognize it, cherish it, and never let it go. Queens, Write this affirmation in the comments and claim it. A man who underestimates my love will never have it again. Let the world know that from this moment forward, you are done waiting for a man to understand what he should have never doubted. Number 4. The longer he has been alone, the more he lives in his own illusions. The longer a man is alone, the deeper he falls into his own illusions. At first, it may seem like he is just enjoying his freedom, his space, his independence, but with each passing day, he drifts further away from reality, convincing himself that love is unnecessary, that emotions are a weakness, that he is better off untouched by the warmth of a woman's presence. And by the time he finally realizes what he's lost, the world has already moved on without him. A man without love for too long is like a ship lost at sea. He may tell himself he is free, that he is in control, that he is the master of his own journey. But without direction, without a harbor, without an anchor, he drifts endlessly, chasing illusions, mistaking the horizon for something real. He convinces himself that he does not need to dock, that he does not need to stop, that love is just another storm waiting to drown him. And so, he keeps floating, unaware that one day, when he finally wants to return, there will be no shore left to welcome him home. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." And a man who spends too long alone builds a world inside his mind that has no space for love. He begins to believe in fantasies, believing that the perfect woman will appear one day without effort, without risk, without challenge. Or worse, he convinces himself that no woman is worthy, that love is a game, that he must always stay one step ahead to avoid getting hurt. And in doing so, he does not protect himself, he isolates himself. He locks himself inside his own mind, refusing to open the door, even when the right woman knocks. And then you walk in, a woman who does not just bring love, but brings fire, depth, and a presence so strong that it could shake his illusions to the ground. But does he recognize it? Number. He hesitates. He resists. Not because you're not enough, but because he has spent too long convincing himself that love is not real. He pushes you away, not because you lack value, but because he has forgotten what real love even feels like. This is where so many women make a mistake. You believe that if you just love him harder, if you just show him your worth, if you just wait patiently, he will wake up. But love cannot wake a man who has been asleep for too long. It does not matter how brightly you shine if he has been living in the dark for years. If a man has convinced himself that love is a trap, then no matter how pure your intentions are, he will always look for a way out. But here is where everything changes. You were never meant to shrink yourself to fit into his world. You were meant to rise so high that he has no choice but to see you for what you are, a woman who does not chase illusions, but one who commands reality. Queens, listen to me. You are not here to fix him. You are not here to convince him. You are not here to wait for him to wake up. Because the truth is, the longer a man has been alone, the more he must choose to break free from his own illusions. And if he refuses, if he lets his fears and fantasies control him, then let him go. Let him stay trapped inside his own mind while you step into the world you were always meant to rule. Because this is what it means to be a queen. To know that your love is not a gift to be ignored. To understand that a man who cannot recognize your worth is not a man you need. To walk away from illusions and toward the life that is waiting for you. Write this in the comments and claim it. I do not chase illusions, I command reality. Let the world know that you are done waiting, done proving, done trying to save a man who refuses to save himself. And queens, if this message awakened something inside you, if it reminded you of the power you've always had, like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are here, working hard to bring you the truth, the strength, and the lessons that will set you free. Because this is not just a message, it is a movement. And you were never meant to beg for love. You were meant to reign. Number 5. The longer he has been without a relationship, the harder it is for him to trust. The longer a man has been without a real relationship, the harder it is for him to trust. But have you ever wondered why? Why does a man who once believed in love, who once dreamed of something real, suddenly find it so hard to open his heart? You would think that time makes a man wiser, more ready, more appreciative. But the truth? Time without love does not always heal, it can harden. The longer he stays alone, the more he builds walls around himself. And by the time he finally meets a woman who could change his world, he may not know how to let her in. A man without a relationship for too long does not remain untouched by it. He convinces himself he is fine, that he does not need love, that he is better off without attachments. But love is not something you turn off like a switch. A man is built to connect, to share, to trust. And when he goes too long without it, his heart begins to change. It is like a river that has not seen rain for years. At first, it still remembers how to flow. But over time, the cracks form, the water dries, and what was once alive turns into dust. And the longer he stays that way, the harder it becomes for him to believe that water will ever return. Marcus Aurelius once said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." A man who has been without love for too long sees trust as a risk, not a gift. He has built his life on his own terms. He has learned to rely only on himself. And now? He sees vulnerability as a weakness. He tells himself that emotions complicate life, that love is just another way to get hurt. He may even convince himself that women cannot be trusted, that relationships are distractions, that giving his heart away will only lead to pain. But what he does not realize is this: by guarding his heart, he is not protecting himself, he is isolating himself. And this is where it gets dangerous, because when he finally meets a woman who is genuine, who is real, who is ready to love him deeply, he does not see her for what she is. He questions her intentions. He searches for flaws. He pushes her away before she even gets too close. Not because she is wrong, but because he has spent so long without love that he no longer knows how to receive it. He does not see love as a blessing anymore. He sees it as a threat. A man who has been alone for too long is like a bird that has lived in a cage for years. At first, the cage was something he fought against. He longed for freedom, for open skies, for something more. But as time passed, he got used to the bars. He stopped trying to escape. He convinced himself that the cage was safer than the unknown world outside. And then one day, someone opens the door. Someone offers him freedom. But instead of flying, he hesitates. He stays in the cage. Not because he wants to, but because he has forgotten how to fly. And queens, this is where so many women make the mistake. You think that if you just show him love, if you just prove you are different, if you just wait long enough, he will change. But listen to me carefully. You cannot teach a man to trust if he is determined to doubt. You cannot force him to open his heart if he has already decided to lock it away. He has to be the one to choose love. He has to be the one to break his own walls. Because no matter how much you give, no matter how much you try, love cannot be received by a heart that is closed. And this is where everything changes. This is where you stop chasing and start becoming. This is where you shift from waiting to be trusted to demanding a man who is ready to trust. Because you, my queen, are not here to fix a man's fears. You are not here to beg for a love that flows freely. A man who is worthy of you will not make you prove yourself. He will not question your loyalty. He will not treat your love like a test he is too afraid to take. And when you finally understand that, when you stop trying to convince a man to see your worth, that is when you step into your power. That is when you stop waiting for trust and start attracting a man who already knows how to give it. Because, queens, a woman who knows her value does not waste her time trying to prove it. She reigns in it. Write this in the comments and claim it. I am not here to fix a broken heart. I am here to be loved with certainty. Let the world know that you are done waiting for a man to see what is already undeniable. Number 6. The longer he goes without love, the more he thinks he can do without it until he can't. The longer a man goes without love, the more he convinces himself that he does not need it. He walks through life with his head high, telling himself that he is fine, that relationships are distractions, that love is nothing but a foolish game. At first, he enjoys the freedom. He thrives in the silence. He tells himself that he has mastered control, that he does not need the warmth of another, that his life is complete as it is. But what he doesn't realize? No man can outrun the need for connection forever. He may build walls, he may guard his heart, but one day, when the nights grow too long and the silence feels too heavy, he will come face to face with the truth. He was never meant to do this alone. Epictetus once said, "No great thing is created suddenly, and love is no exception." A man who goes too long without it may believe he is strong, that he has built a life where he lacks nothing. But strength is not measured by how well he avoids love. It is measured by how well he embraces it when it finally stands before him. And the longer he refuses it, the harder it becomes to open his heart when the right woman comes along. He convinces himself that love is a choice, that he can take it or leave it. But love does not work that way. Love is like sunlight. You may close the curtains for a while, but eventually you will crave its warmth again. And by the time he realizes it, the sun may have already set. A man without love for too long is like a garden left untended. At first, everything seems fine. The soil is rich, the flowers still hold their beauty. But slowly, day by day, without care, without attention, the colors fade. The roots weaken. What was once full of life becomes dry, empty, barren. And the longer he stays in that emptiness, the harder it becomes to revive what was lost. When a woman of depth and love enters his life, he may not even recognize her value, not because she is lacking, but because he has lived in drought for so long that he no longer knows how to receive the rain. And here you are, a woman of presence, of beauty, of undeniable worth. A woman who has love to give, not the shallow kind, not the temporary thrill, but the kind of love that can change a man if he is strong enough to accept it. But tell me, why should you spend your energy trying to prove to a man that he needs something he is too blind to see? Why should you waste your time waiting for him to realize what you already know? A woman like you does not beg to be seen. A woman like you does not chase a man who has spent too long convincing himself he is better off alone. Because the truth is, one day he will realize what he lost. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but there will come a moment when the nights feel colder, when the laughter is missing, when he looks around and sees that the life he built without love is not as fulfilling as he once believed. And when that moment comes, he will think of you. He will wonder where you are, if you still think of him, if there is any way back. But by then, you will be too far ahead, too untouchable, too radiant in your own power to ever look back. Because you, my dear, were never meant to be the woman who waits. You were never meant to be the woman who convinces a man to open his heart. You are the woman who reigns, the woman who chooses herself first. The woman who walks forward with her head high, knowing that love is not something you beg for, it is something that is given freely, passionately, fearlessly. And if he was too afraid to hold it, too blind to recognize it, too stubborn to embrace it, that is not your burden to carry. That is the lesson he must learn on his own. So rise, dear Queen, step into the power you have always had. Let him live in the world he created for himself. And you go and build a kingdom where love is not feared, but honored. Let him watch, let him wonder, let him regret. Because the biggest lesson a man can ever learn is this: love is not a weakness. It is the greatest power of all. And the woman he once thought he could do without, she is now the woman he will never have again. Queens, write this in the comments and claim it. I am the woman he will never have again. Let the world know that you are done waiting, done proving, done holding on to a man who was too blind to see your worth. 7. The longer he has been without a relationship, the more he thinks love is something to be controlled, not felt. The longer a man has been without a relationship, the more he thinks love is something to be controlled, not felt. Have you ever met a man who overthinks love, who tries to fit it into a schedule, a strategy, a set of rules? He does not surrender to it. He studies it. He dissects it. He tries to predict it. Instead of letting love flow, he treats it like a game he must master, a puzzle he must solve. But love does not belong to those who try to control it. Love is not a machine with instructions. It is not a formula that can be manipulated. Love is a force, a fire, a living thing that can only be experienced, not owned. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when a man has spent too long alone, his thoughts about love begin to change. He does not see it as a connection, as a deep exchange between two souls. He sees it as something to be managed, something he must keep at a safe distance. He convinces himself that feelings make him weak, that attachment is dangerous, that vulnerability is a trap. He builds walls so high that even when love stands before him, he cannot reach it. A man like this may desire a woman, but he will not let himself need her. He will want affection, but only on his terms. He will chase passion, but fear commitment, because to him, control is safety. And the idea of losing himself in love, that terrifies him more than being alone. Imagine a man who has never felt the ocean. He stands at the shore, watching the waves crash, admiring its beauty. But when it's time to step in, he hesitates. He tries to calculate every movement, control every wave, predict every ripple, before he takes a step. But the ocean does not wait. The longer he stands there, the further the tide pulls away, leaving him with nothing but wet sand beneath his feet. That is what happens to a man who overthinks love. He waits, he calculates, he hesitates, and before he knows it, the love that could have changed his life is gone. Now, here you are, a woman of warmth, of depth, of passion, a woman who does not need to control love because she knows love is meant to be felt. You offer something real, something raw, something no amount of strategy can replace. But when a man has been alone for too long, he does not know how to accept it. He mistakes your patience for a game. He treats your kindness like a tactic. He pulls away, convinced that if he lets go of control, he will lose himself. What he doesn't see, he is already losing something far greater, you. And this is where so many women make the mistake. You think if you just show him you're different, if you just prove you're safe, if you just wait a little longer, he will open up. But you are not here to teach a man how to feel. You are not here to spend years proving that love is not his enemy. A man who is too afraid to lose control will never be able to hold something as wild and powerful as you. This is where everything changes. This is where you stop adjusting to his fears and start stepping into your power. Because love does not belong to those who fear it. Love belongs to the brave, to the open, to the ones who know that real connection cannot be caged. You are not here to be a lesson. You are not here to wait until he is ready. You are here to reign, to glow, to be the woman who does not wait for a man to understand love, but the woman who's already living it. Queens, write this affirmation in the comments and claim it. Love is not controlled, it is felt, and I will never shrink for a man who fears it. Let the world know that you are done waiting for a man to wake up. You are stepping into a love that is free, fierce, and fearless. Number 8. The longer he waits, the more he risks losing a woman who was meant to change his life. The worst mistake a man can ever make is thinking that time is on his side, that he can take his time, keep his options open, live without commitment, and somehow still expect the right woman to be waiting for him when he's finally ready. But love does not wait forever, and the longer he hesitates, the more he risks losing the one woman who was meant to change his life. At first, he believes he has control. He believes that love will always be there, that he can return when he wants, that she will still be standing in the same place, waiting for him to see her worth. But love is not a light switch he can turn on and off when it suits him. A woman who is patient is not a woman who will wait forever. She will hope. She will give him chances. She will try to understand. But one day, without warning, she will wake up and feel nothing. And that is the moment he will lose her forever. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And a man who thinks love is something he can delay, something that will always be available when he is ready, is painting himself into a future of regret. Because life does not pause for his uncertainty. Time does not stop while he figures himself out. And when he finally realizes what he lost, it will be too late. A woman's love is like a rare and beautiful flower. At first, it blooms with warmth, patience, and devotion. It offers everything softness, depth, and loyalty. But a flower that is neglected, that is left to the mercy of time, does not wait for the gardener to return. It does not stay frozen in place, holding on to hope. It wilts, it closes, and eventually it disappears. And once it's gone, no amount of watering, no amount of apologies, no amount of, "I finally see your worth," will bring it back. But he does not see this yet. Right now, he believes he can take his time. He tells himself he is just not ready, that there will always be a next time, a next chance, a next chapter. But love does not operate on his schedule. A woman who is ready for something real will not stay in a place where she feels like an option. And by the time he realizes that no other woman will love him the way she did, by the time he understands that what he lost was once in a lifetime, she will already be gone. Queens, this is where you must understand your own power. A man who cannot see your worth today will not magically wake up tomorrow and treat you like a queen. A man who makes you question where you stand is a man who does not deserve to stand beside you at all. Do not lower your standards for his confusion. Do not wait in the shadows, hoping he will choose you. You are not meant to be a woman who waits. You are meant to be a woman who is chosen the first time, without hesitation, without second-guessing, without needing to prove anything. And here is the truth he will soon learn: the woman he took for granted, the woman he assumed would always be there, will become the woman he cannot reach. And no matter how many times he looks back, no matter how much he wishes he could go back in time, he will have to live with the fact that he let her slip away. One day, he will see her, not in his life, not in his arms, but in a world he no longer has access to. He will see her laughing, thriving, standing in her power. And in that moment, he will realize something that will haunt him forever. She was never waiting for him. She was just giving him the chance to step up, and he failed. Queens, hear me when I say this. You are not here to wait for a man to wake up. You are not here to remind him of your worth. You are not here to hold space for a man who treats love like an afterthought. You are here to be cherished, adored, and pursued by a man who knows what he has from the moment he meets you. Write this in the comments and claim it. If he waits too long, he will lose me forever. Let the world know that from this moment forward, you are done waiting, done hoping, done proving yourself to a man who cannot recognize your value in the present. And queens, if this message reminded you of your power, if it awakened something deep inside you, like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are here, working hard to bring you the truth, the wisdom, and the lessons that will set you free. Because you were never meant to beg for love. You were meant to reign.